Hello and welcome to the Health Course podcast. I'm Megan Walker and today our very special guest is Lyndsay Babcock, who is the Director and Principal Psychologist at the Self Centre. Hi Lyndsay, how are you?
Hi, Megan. I'm really well. Thank you so much for having me. This is really fun.
Oh, I'm so glad to have you on board. And, everyone has a story as to why they've arrived at the decision to go in with a healthcare course. It's not an easy decision to make, but you have, a few reasons there driving you. So I thought it would be wonderful to touch on that today. But start us off. Tell us about your practice, where you're based, what sort of services do you deliver, who do you work with, that sort of thing.
Yeah, sure. Happy to. So the practice that I own and run is called the Self Centre. And so our main practice is in Sydney. So we have a team of 6 or 7 psychologists working in Sydney, which is really cool. They do great work. And then we have a new branch in Kingscliff, which is just south of the Gold Coast that we opened earlier this year. As well, we offer telehealth across Australia, which is really cool as well.
Brilliant. And you're working across all ages and stages in your clinics?
Yeah, so we mainly see adults, mostly adults who are referred by our doctors. So most of the people who see us are working under a mental health care plan. Some are not. But we mostly see adults. We see a few adolescents, and we don't have anybody on the team at the minute who see children. That's just not something that we have focused on. So we're really focused on that kind of later adolescent adult population. And most of the people we see are usually they're professionals or executives or medical practitioners, frontline workers, you name it. We just kind of see everything, which is really lovely.
Yeah, amazing. And so the vision for your practice, tell us about getting it started and what you had in mind when you were starting, creating this amazing practice that you've built up.
I mean, it just evolves. These things just evolve. So, I mean, I think I was 16 when I realized I wanted to be a psychologist, and very quickly I realized I wanted to be in private practice. I don't know why. I can't explain why, but I knew that. And so that was just my driving force from the time I was sort of 16 until now, is to be a psychologist in private practice. And so when I finished my training, I went into private practice work with someone else and worked in their beautiful practice for about 7 years, which was a lovely experience. And then stepped away and had my babies and decided to open up my own doors, my own room. And I did so, and very quickly the demand grew. Within a couple of months, I needed to have people working with me to meet the demand, which was a great thing. But but it was very overwhelming as well. I had kind of no idea what that really looked like and how to do it, because I also had a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old who at the time were undiagnosed autistic and ADHD. And so life was very full and busy. And so I contracted my first associate very quickly. And then it just sort of grew from there. I've kind of always tried to stay a bit ahead of demand so that we never have long wait lists. That became really important to us, particularly through COVID. And so our vision really is to make sure that we offer really top quality customer care, that we're highly ethical, evidence-based in our treatment, and that we're really focused on building outstanding relationships with the people that we work with.
Amazing. So good. And what are, say, a couple of, 2 or 3 challenges that you discovered in, being the owner of a big practice that you weren't aware of before going in? Like, what were some of the things that you might say to someone else who's starting a practice and go, might want to keep an eye out for this? It's a question without notice. So
it is. It's a really good question.
By the way.
There's so much. I think the first thing that I didn't realize was that I really needed support. And that theme presents itself in various ways throughout my life. But I needed support as a practice owner. I stepped into this role and all of a sudden I felt like I had this massive responsibility to know everything, to do everything, to be everything to everyone. And so as soon as I started to get support and coaching, everything changed for me. So that was really helpful. So I would suggest that to anybody who's opening their practice. And to make sure that you hire or work with colleagues who are really aligned to, to you and to your vision and to what you really value. I think a value alignment feels really important as well.
Yeah, great tips. Isn't it funny how we try and do everything ourselves because we think, oh, it's just so much easier or faster for me just to do it myself. I don't have the time to train someone. It'll just be easier. But it really stalls growth, doesn't it? That mindset.
Yeah, doesn't it? I had this idea for so long that because I was the boss, even though I was never a boss, I had associates, not employees. But because I was the person, I needed to know everything. And I mean, what a huge amount of unnecessary responsibility. Exactly. Yeah.
I know in my business when I had 8 full-time staff, I remember at one point thinking, I don't need to know about the schedule for servicing the fire extinguisher. There's surely someone I need to let go.
Yeah. For sure. And it's okay not to know because we can learn from each other and we can grow together. And there's so much more authenticity in that, I think, as well, isn't there? Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, hi there. Just popping in with a little message for you. If you're an allied health professional, specialist GP or specialist, and you're interested in creating your own healthcare course for your private practice, then I'd love to share with you my brand new free masterclass called 5 Secrets to Create and Sell a Healthcare Course. Now, everything that you learn inside this masterclass is 100% aligned with the AHPRA advertising guidelines and equivalent best practices. So head over to meganwalker.com/5 secrets, the number 5 secrets. So meganwalker.com/5 secrets and join the masterclass today. Now, leading up to your decision to go into online courses, you've also had a health journey. So you've got your babies. I'm hearing there that there's been a journey.
And there was a journey.
I can relate to that one. That's it's like a Kokoda trail, isn't it? You just don't know what's coming.
It is. Indeed.
And are you comfortable telling us about what you've been through as well with
for sure.
Your health?
Yeah. So, the bit of a backstory. So I had my practice in Sydney, as I said. Actually, I've run that business for 10 years in Sydney, over 10 years, actually. And in 2022, my husband and I decided we wanted to have a sea change. And so we decided we were going to move to Northern New South Wales. And that was a big deal because, it meant that I would have to leave my practice and figure out how to work remotely to support my practice. And the kids had to adjust to new schools and all the things. So that took about a year to kind of get underway. And my plan was that I would go back to Sydney every 2 to 3 months, really to support and be present. So we moved in January 23 and settled the kids into school and just started to feel our way into our new house and our life. And I was just about to, in fact, I went to Sydney once to say hello to everybody and, start the process. And 6 weeks after we moved to our new home, I was diagnosed with stage 3 breast cancer. So that really kind of put a spanner in our plan.
Yes.
Very unexpectedly. And then I spent the next 12 months in treatment. So it was a really full-on 12 months, March to March.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was really intense and it just required, a lot of adjustment from a lot of people.
Yes. And that's so raw and so recent that you've just stepped out of that treatment focused time.
Yeah. So I finished my final infusion in March this year.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh, congratulations for being out the other side of that piece in the journey.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's such a journey. It's such a journey. I've been cancer-free officially for a year.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you. In August, which is great. And but treatment continues. I was told that the cancer had been, was effectively treated with chemotherapy, which is great. But then I still had 6 months of treatment that I had to go through to help minimize the risk of recurrence.
Okay, right.
Yeah.
And so I can only imagine the choices that forces you into make of what's available with your time.
Yeah.
Talk about a fast track way to do a this is going to sound maybe slightly blunt, but a time productivity baptism of fire. Like if you've only got so much energy, you've only got so much time, where are you going to spend it?
Yeah.
So what are some of the big changes that came about for you with?
Yeah, well, so prior to having my diagnosis, I was really hands-on in the practice. Having said that, I wasn't doing a ton of clinical work. I was doing a little bit of clinical work, but I was doing all of, and I have returned to doing all of my initial intake. So every person who presents to the practice, I do a complimentary session, initial session with them, just to make sure that we're the right fit, that we can be helpful for them, etc. And I couldn't do that when I was unwell. I just couldn't do that. So, and I couldn't do supervision with a team. I didn't have the energy for that. I couldn't do a lot of the admin, I have a great admin person who supports me. So she kind of really had to pick up a lot of what I do. And my clinical team had to support each other. And, I just sort of faded into the background a little bit because there were weeks where I had chemo every 3 weeks, and there was 1 week where I couldn't work at all. Out of 3 weeks, I couldn't work at all. And then the other two, I was probably running at about 50% capacity. So I just had to kind of pull back. And, it was such a practice of letting go and radical acceptance and faith in the people that I had worked with for many years before the diagnosis, and trust that it would all the things that I had put into place over the years would continue to work. And most of them did. And my team, my associates, my colleagues, they're amazing, amazing human beings. They just kind of picked it all up and did it all and carried us all through. Yeah, it was pretty amazing.
Hence your point about hiring people for like-mindedness and the people that you want to go on the journey with. You chose so well before knowing any of this.
Yeah.
That you could have faith in them to carry things through.
Yeah.
Wow. And so, oh my goodness, there's so much we could talk about. I almost feel like saying, what do you want to talk about? What do you want to So you're creating a healthcare course. That's one of the things that's come out of, but you were thinking about that before. You were looking at ways to diversify your business. Do you want to touch on that?
Yeah, sure. So my business is, our practice, it's been a really interesting thing. So our practice is sort of a generalist practice because we see a lot of mental health people with mental health care plans, and everybody has different orientations. So there were kind of two things that I wanted to do. I really wanted to have a program that supported our clients, kind of no matter what they were presenting with. And so we have a online course that people can do that's kind of basic psycho ed about mental health care, and it really kind of supports the work that they're doing with their clinicians. If they're not quite ready to start and they want a little taster that sits there. So I really want to develop that and have that become more robust in our practice. Yeah. As well, though, I have a really special interest in working with women in midlife who are stressed and burnt out and doing all the things and probably also have some mild to moderate trauma. I really love working with women in that, demographic. And so I want to also have, in fact, I've built an online program where women can learn some skills, some basic information about how to manage their stress, how to support themselves, how to set boundaries, how to be healthy and do all the things that can be complementary to their clinical work or again, prior to or after their clinical work.
Yeah. Amazing. So good. Oh, I love those ideas, Erica.
So they're kind of twofold. So there's one for like my specific area of interest, and then there's one for the practice.
Yes, very good. Okay, brilliant. And what have you discovered so far in creating healthcare courses that's different to how you've worked up until this point?
It's so different. It's so different. I think I've discovered the content creation. I mean, figuring out how to get really specific about the content that I deliver has been tricky because as psychologists, we're kind of trained to know a lot about a wide variety of things. And so to get really specific about one thing and not consider all of these other factors that we're taught to always consider is really tricky, or has been for me, really tricky to get really narrow focus, but a really good learning exercise. And the other thing that's been really tricky is just the time that it takes to market it all. That's and that it requires a completely different skill set.
Yes.
To figure out how to market it.
So
that's been the trickiest thing. So to learn how to do that has been really fun, but really challenging.
Absolutely. A whole new skill set packed into a short period of time.
Yeah, totally.
No pressure.
Totally. Yeah, totally. Because we're trained to be clinicians and we're not trained to sell our product, but we're just not trained to sell a product, right? And so to kind of think about having to do that differently has been really fun.
Some people that I talk to almost even grapple a little bit with the permission of giving themselves the go-ahead to develop a product. I hear people say, well, who will approve it? Who will let me do that? Who says that it's okay for me to step outside my clinical role and create this education piece over here? Did you have any of those challenges come up for you?
Look, I don't know whether it was approval seeking, but more about, is this ethically allowed, right? Like, where are my ethical limits and boundaries here? So, we're trained, and I am very mindful always to be really careful about delivering anything to someone in or out of, my clinical space that, I don't want to do any harm. And so it's been really tricky to think about, okay, well, if I say this one thing, is this how is that going to be interpreted by a whole range of different people? How's that going to land? And is that ethical for me to say, given who the audience might be?
Yes.
So that's been really tricky for me to get my head around often.
Interesting. Oh, it's so good. I always learn so much when I talk to health course creators. It's like, oh, yes, I didn't think of that. I didn't think of that. I've got the insurance thing happening. I've got APRA. I've got legals. I've just started thinking about this permission piece. And of course, the ethical. Yeah, definitely. In my head, it's quite clear being a layperson of, okay, clinical one-on-one is delivered there and then general education widely applicable is over here. But that still can be triggering for people, can't it? Where do you then have in mind that you would tap people back into your traditional practice? If they need help, if things come up that they could book a telehealth, do you have that option?
Yeah, definitely. And I think one of the things that initially I really loved the idea of building this product that I didn't really have to have any involvement in, that I could just build and I could put out and I didn't have to do any of the work. I could do it once and leave it.
Yeah.
But because in my mind, I'm really mindful of how triggering it could be for some people, I feel like I need to have at least a touch point with everybody who goes through the course.
Yes.
So that if they are impacted or affected, then I absolutely have an ethical obligation to offer them additional support where they need it. Yeah. So then they can touch back into our practice, or I would, recommend that they see, a different practice based on their needs, just depending on what they're needing.
Yeah, so good. I love that. Love that duty of care, rounding it all out. We're not doing this to get rich quick and make money. This is a longer game view with that care.
I would love that.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie. I would love the get rich quick thing. I would love that. but we just can't. I just don't think that I can't do that. I really have to think about people's emotional well-being.
Yeah. You've got to sleep at night too. We all know what's right and wrong.
Yeah.
Oh, Lyndsay, that's so great. And so how do people get in touch with you if they want to find out about I have a lot of women that you described before who might be interested in finding out more. Where can they go and follow you and start watching the progress?
Yeah. So we, my practice is the website, selfcenter.com.au.
Yeah.
And then on Instagram, I have two handles. I have selfcenter_Australia, which is obviously our clinical practice. And then I also have my coaching business, which is Lyndsay B_ and I can give you all the details. I'm sure you can.
We'll put it below where
So
they're
people
watching.
can follow me. Yeah, people can follow me there and then be in touch. People are often in touch through Instagram. And all of our contact details are on there as well. So
good. Is there anything that I haven't asked you that you wanted to share, Lyndsay?
I mean, I'm sure I will walk away and go, oh, I should have said all these different things. But, no, it's been such a pleasure to be in conversation with you today and to talk about all the things. And I think it's just really exciting for healthcare providers right now to be able to think about delivering our services in different ways and to offer additional things alongside of the work, the private practice work we do. It feels like it's just sort of starting to emerge, and it's lovely. I think it's great because it gives people, the public, access to healthcare that they may not otherwise have.
Yeah. And that's my whole vision. Absolutely. I don't want anyone languishing or thinking, or stuck because they didn't have access or it wasn't available.
Right.
It's like, okay, there's knowledge in people's heads. Every single practitioner and clinician that I meet with has got a unique set of knowledge that can help someone. So let's package that and get it to those people so that we're, improving healthcare outcomes. That's the whole driver.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
thank you so much, Lyndsay, for sharing your story. I can only imagine the hardship of that for you personally, your family and your practice. So thank you for sharing that. You actually exude so much positivity. I can picture for anyone listening to this who is faced with similar challenges to just know that there is another side. Is amazing.
Yeah. There's another side, and also to lean into support. That was for sure the biggest lesson for me, to lean into support.
Yeah. Brilliant. Gosh, there's a book in you, isn't there? But hang on, don't do a book. An online course is far more profitable. Add a lot into that.
Thanks for the tip.
Thank you so much again, Lyndsay. And please get in touch with Lyndsay. Her contact details are below.